Good afternoon, rather. I guess I'm doing the welcome and the libation. Welcome to the Black Power 50th Anniversary, Black Power Chronicles. My name is Akua Holt, and what a fine panel we have for you today. Please give them a round of applause. And to the organizers of this panel, thank you so much. It's so important for us to revisit history, not just to learn about the past, but as the Sankofa parable, we need to take what we can from the past so we can move forward, right? Examine that past thoroughly. And we know the scholars and activists that we have on the panel today, we're going to get the opportunity to do that. One thing you don't say is no to friends, right? When they call you in the middle of the night and ask you to do a task, and even though you want to say, I don't know if I can do that, you go ahead and stand up and do what you have to do. So I was asked to pour libation today and to welcome you, and please bear with me. If you can just take a moment and take a deep breath in and exhale. We experienced a lot this week and last week. So much trouble in the world, as Bob Marley would say. So many killings, but yet there's life too. There were babies born. People went to school for the first time. Lots of fun things happened. People had birthdays. My brother's birthday is tomorrow. He lost his son a couple of years ago to cancer. So people are living their lives still, and the events that shape the world today on TV is not the only reality. And we have to remind ourselves that this event is taking place too. It's not being streamed live maybe on Facebook, maybe you won't see it on the news, but it's happening. And this is our reality, and we have to be careful about allowing other people to shape narratives for us. Having said that, and speaking of shaping our lives, there were great giants in my life who shaped my life, and I want to give thanks to them. My grandmother, Marguerite McCoy and Hattie Odoms, and my grandfather, Nelson McCoy and Simon Pete Odoms. Those are the people who helped shape my life. And so today we call on those who have gone before. In African culture, they refer to them as ancestors. We call on them to give us strength, to give us clarity, and to help us understand what we're facing today. So I want to call on the great ancestors who helped shape this organization, Shape Center, and we could not do this without calling on Esther King, the great Esther King. Ayana Ade. Charles Freeman. And of course, Carl B. Hampton. There will be a film program in honor of him, Bunchi, coming up in August, right? Or the end of July. And we'll tell you more about that. Carl B. Hampton. Mama Delaney. Mr. Denver. Mrs. Parker. DeWayne's mother, Mr. Parker. Well, Mr. Parker is still with us. Mrs. Parker. Any others? Please share.
Michael Jackson. Edwin Lockett.
Shoot out Boney. See.
Rosa Parks. Christina Adair.
Dr. Bob Powell.
Maria Museji. And as we call on all of those names, all of those ancestors who have gone before, we stand on their shoulders. We draw on their wisdom and their strengths. We learn from them. And we still have elders among us each and every day. Mrs. Denver is one, and there are others. There are elders on this panel that we can reach out to. And any moment, they're available to talk to you, to mentor you. So don't forget that you're not alone in this world. I was talking to a friend in this room, and we were talking about funerals today, because I was supposed to go to a funeral of a young man who was shot on the 4th of July. Did you guys know that? 5 people were shot in Fort Ward on the 4th of July. Yep. But we know about Dallas. And one of the young men, 3 didn't make it. One was 10 years old, he lived. But one of the young men was a graduate of Yates track team, was in the hoops program at Good Hope Church. So I called my friend thinking he was at that funeral, and he said, no, you got mixed up. I'm at another funeral. We had a family friend who committed suicide, and he's no longer with us. At St. John's Church, and the mayor is here. So people are hurting, and before they die, we can tell them what? That we love them, and they're not alone. And in this room, sometimes in the struggle, we feel alone, but you're not alone. There are people that you can reach out to. There are examples of those who've gone before. There are books that you can read, speeches that you can listen to, lots of things that you can do for inspiration. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to
So let me first start by saying how grateful we are that you chose to invest some of your time and energy with us. Let me also at the same time apologize because we in the movement have to critique ourselves and we started way too late. So I want to say I apologize for that, put that responsibility for it on me. Now, we're trying to do something different in terms of our format. What we want to do is have the broadest, deepest, most collaborative, collective dialogue that we can have with each other. Not just those of us who happen to be sitting on stage, but you as well. In order to do that, we're working on an effort to try to limit our comments to 3 minutes, 2 minutes, or 1 minute. On the lead presenters, we're going to ask them to try to be concise. Go to the bottom line, because all of us in here have been involved in the struggle. So some of the background that we might want to give to young students who are new in the movement, we already know. What we're looking is how can we understand and go deeper. And then in response, it doesn't necessarily take 3 minutes to respond to a 3-minute presentation. So we're going to ask you to kind of self-regulate. That's the idea. And we want to give as many opportunities as possible to engage with you, because we engage with each other mostly all the time. Now, to help us to understand that, we have a little timer up here. And it'll go beep. And when you hear the beep, you know that you need to kind of wrap it up. So we can get to somebody else so we can hurry back and get back to you. When you get a chance, Patrick, I'm going to ask you to start the PowerPoint so we can transition. We have a lot of data, about 111 slides. And we'll repeat it so you don't have to be focused on it. But you see a lot of statistical data. We want to make data-driven decisions and not just opinion-driven decisions. So with that, that's kind of the rules of the road. Let me acknowledge Congresswoman Sheila Jackson-Lee's representative is in the House. She's going to honor our group with a proclamation, which we'll acknowledge at the end of the program, but we know we appreciate her thinking about us and her being and doing the work that she does. With that, we're going to go ahead and begin the program. We're going to ask each one of the panelists to self-identify themselves in about a minute or so. Let's start on the left with Brother DeWayne.
Good evening. Good evening. Come on, we can do a little better than that. Good evening. Good evening. My name is DeWayne Lark. I am a child of Sunnyside. I grew up in Sugar Valley. It was a safe house for the Black Panthers next door, which gives me a unique, I believe, and acute perspective of what life was in Houston at that time relative to what was called the Black Hot Saturday Night, when the cops murdered Carl Hampton and others during that fiasco in that weekend. I am the president of the Harris County Council of Organization, George T. Nelson. I'm the chairman of the KPFT 90.1 FM board. Are there any KPFT members here today? Please raise your hands. And those of you who are not, I've got some membership forms that I'd like to sign you up because the revolution is going down at KPFT. It is 5 to 7 counties strong, and the African American community and the Hispanic community and the Asian community has not utilized it to its full extent of being a conduit and a message center. And I'll leave it at that. One of the programmers of KPFT.
Good evening. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy that all of you are here. And I think that this should end up being a wonderful event. My name is Obidike, Kamau. I'm not a child of any place in Houston, but I am a child of Texas, Lufkin and Corsicana. I have been in Houston on and off for probably 20 years, 30 years. Almost half of my life, I have been involved in a lot of Houston movements, a long-time programmer at KPFT. I'm currently employed as the Associate Director of the University Library at Texas Southern University.
Good afternoon. My name is Michelle Barnes. I'm an artist educator. I'm a parent, a wife, grandmother, co-founder, and executive director of the Community Artists Collective. I've lived in Houston since 1951 at least, born in Austin, Texas. My family is from Texas, and I matriculated through public schools and the University of Houston and got my master's in community development from Prairie View A&M University. I consider myself a pro-activist. I prioritized my family and my community, and pretty much in that order. It is still important that work be done in our community to make it, the whole community, safe and life-supporting.
Good afternoon. My name is Charles X. White. I'm a former Chief Minister of the Nation of Islam in Houston and Beaumont. Currently, I host the largest community partnership exchange breakfast dealing with civic engagement in the state of Texas. My touch or introduction to social change came in the form of attempting to be the first black liquor distributor in the Southwest in 1972 and 73. At that time, there were only 3 in the United States. We are credited slightly as one spoke in the wheel of changing in the liquor industry at that time. There were no black sales managers, no branch managers, and our work helped to make that change.
I'm Boney. I am the former Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Houston under with Lee P. Brown, the first African-American Mayor of Houston. I've been a member of the City Council. But I consider myself a servant leader. I first got involved in movement activities in 1970 and 71 when I was one of 200 African-American students attending the University of Texas at Austin with a student population of 40,000, virtually all white, 500 Hispanics, and 1,000 foreign students. We got engaged and organized and preserved the Black Studies program, initiated the creation and development of the Minority Student Recruitment Program, and named the next director of the African American Studies program. That's how I got started, and I've never been able to figure out how to stop. Human suffering bothers me to such a degree, I have not been able to inoculate myself against others' pain.
I'm Gite, born and raised here in Houston. Blackshear Elementary, Ryan Junior High, and Saints High School. Attended North Texas State, became involved in the movement. Left North Texas State and came home to Houston to organize the working class. Continued to be involved in struggles to improve the well-being of my community. Currently involved in the University of Houston High School Reform, the Emancipation Economic Development Council, and co-chair of Black Power Fridays.
Good afternoon, family. My name is Brandi Holmes. I am currently the Director of Strategy and Community Organizing with a group called BLMHTX, and also a community organizer with a group called Truth to Power. Native Houstonian, went to University of North Texas as well. Left Houston in 2005 and had the opportunity to move to Memphis. And during that time in Memphis really shaped my ideas around community organizing and activism, as I had the opportunity to travel to Deep South and to really see some of the atrocities that our people face. Really privileged to have a mother that exposed me to the Black Liberation Movement and the importance of that movement, and really got inspired in 2014 when I returned back to Houston to really commit myself full-time to the movement activities and the activities of liberation for Black people. So I'm excited to be here with you all today and to chat about some of the topics that we'll be discussing.
My name is Omowale, Luthuli. Thank you so much for the invitation to be here today. Always say in the introduction that you don't have to have a perfect life to have a wonderful day. I am the Community Engagement Coordinator for President Obama's program for Black boys and Latino boys in Houston, Break the School to Prison pipeline, my brother's keeper, and I also am the Executive Director of the International Youth Friendship and Development Program. Love being here with you today.
My name is Larvester, Gaither. Thank you very much for having me here today. I didn't grow up in Houston, Texas. I grew up in Illinois, and my activism started in Illinois. I started out being an activist in Southern Illinois, anti-apartheid movement. I was a delegate to Jesse Jackson in 1988 National Convention, and also organized this campaign for Kentucky, Southern Illinois, and Missouri. And so I did come to Houston in 1989, and one of the first things that I did in terms of employment was to work here in this building right here, Shape Communities. Since I've been here, I've been involved in the Gary Graham. I was involved in the Gary Graham Justice Coalition. I was most recently a delegate for a state delegate for Bernie Sanders, and I'm also a teacher and educator in Houston Independent Schools.
I guess this is mine?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Officially, I'm Carrie Catherine McCary. That's legally. But everybody pretty much knows me as PK or Miss PK or Mama PK. I'm a peace activist, and my work has been local, nationally, and internationally. I was program director for the Roscoe Chapel back in 2003, 2002, 3, 4. I was secretary to an international organization called United Religions Initiative. But my work is peace work. And it doesn't mean the absence of conflict here. It means how we handle conflict. And I've been educated on the ground, both here and in other countries. And so I'm thankful to be here today because social justice is primary on my light job, what I do to make a difference in my community. And I work with a lot of young people, and I'm glad to see you all here.
Well, thank you. I think this is good. Thank you so much. So the Black Power Chronicles evolved out of the SNCC Legacy Project. June 16, 1966 is the 50th year anniversary of the initial call for Black Power by Mukasa Willie Ritz and the beloved Stokely Carmichael. That launched a new era in the social movements for freedom and liberation and social justice. What we accepted the responsibility of doing here in Houston was to document the history of social justice movements in Houston from 1966 through today. In light of that, if you look at the context when Black Power was first called for in 1966, it launched a new level and a new direction for Black activism and launched what became known as the Black Power era. I have said, this is my supposition, that we now see the emergence of another level of social and Black activism embodied in the Black Lives Matter movement. So what we thought we would do to just kind of frame that context is talk about some of the successful social justice movements that we've had here in Houston. And you can see them listed on the PowerPoint over there. Amongst the first in the mid to late 60s happened on the campuses. Again and again, we see young people take the lead. And we have some people who are on this panel that were part of the U8 social justice movements that desegregated the University of Houston, and many of us are aware of the landmark work done by the students at Texas Southern University. So Michelle, why don't you talk a little bit about what happened at the University of Houston?
In spite of my best intentions to focus on being a great student and getting out of school on time in 4 years or less, I was pulled into the social activist movement at the University of Houston because of the timing of my entree onto that campus. After having graduated from Yates High School, a very nurturing place, as all of the public schools were that fed into Yates, as the community was generally, it was shocking to be at the University of Houston with its vestiges of segregation, with the barriers that were put in place to my doing well as a student, and for the distractions that were there to get me off my path of graduating and working in the real world and contributing to my household. Those were my objectives. There was an incident in Sunnyside. A child was drowned in a dump that the neighborhood had vociferously worked to close. They wanted a park in the neighborhood. Holmes Road dump. So it took the tragedy of a child losing life, that kind of distraction, to prioritize getting off that path that was personal and working for a greater cause, something that would benefit people that I didn't even know, and working with people that I would come to know for the rest of my life. Jean Lark, Omowale, Luthuli, Lynn Usan, many, many, many others. Cadre of student activists who were focused on, at first, in their own ways, desegregating the University of Houston. My purpose and engagement happened with the incident with the Holmes Road dump.
Omowale, I know you were at UVA about that time as well. Pull that mic close to you.
Yeah, very definitely. In the interest of time, what I would like to share with the audience about the University of Houston, the University of Houston had been a private school, segregated for about 35 years, and then it transitioned to be a public school. Michelle and I were part of that first wave of black students that went into the University of Houston. Ezekiel Cullen, one of the founders of the school, had made the statement that no nigger would ever enter the University of Houston. And all of a sudden, this influx of black students take place at the University of Houston. What I'd like to share with you about that, it probably comes, I don't know if it's James Weldon Johnson, because many of us were very, very fortunate to go to the University of Houston and graduate from the University of Houston. And by virtue of the fact that Michelle is here, we didn't get drunk with the wine of the world. Which is to say that when we were charged with inciting a riot at the University of Houston, and by the way, we mentioned one of the giants, Esther King. Esther King was also with us at that particular time because we didn't respect the demarcation between Texas Southern and the University of Houston. We fully and fluidly intermixed with each other, married each other, by the way, from these various institutions. But what I want to say is that when we were charged with inciting a riot, we had a very celebrated trial here. And for 5 days, while we were being prosecuted on the 5th day, there was a black female on the jury. She winked her eye. And I caught it, and I said to Gene Lark, I said, "We home free." He said, "Why you say that?" I said, "That sister winked her eye." She winked her eye when she went out the door for the 2nd time. And we followed up and found out that she lived in Jessup Drive. She on Jensen Drive. She caught the bus in front of Foliage to do domestic work out in River Oaks. So when she got in the jury room and they found out that somebody did not vote to convict the boys, the jury foreman said, well, if we don't convict these boys, we can't go back to our community. She said, if we convict them, honey, I damn sure can't go back to mine. But here's the point that I wanted to make, lest we forget and become drunk with the wine of the world. She said that when she looked at us, she had 2 boys that were incarcerated in the Texas Department of Corrections. She said that's all she needed to know. She had to get out of jail key for us. So let's not forget that a lot of the brothers and sisters who didn't get a chance to matriculate, who didn't get a chance to go to the University of Houston, who are not carrying the American Express card in their billfold, that they made it possible for us to go through the door.
Now, I don't know how many people know much about the struggle that emerged at TSU to deal with desegregation. At the time, this is roughly 1966, 67, Negroes, as we were called at that time, could not eat at the lunch counter at Wine Gardens grocery store, could not go to the movie theaters downtown, the white movie theaters, could not deal with public accommodations or transportation. Well, the students decided to take that on at TSU. They watched the student activism across the South. They said they can do it in Birmingham, they can do it in Georgia, we can do it in Texas. And they launched out. The usual marches, sit-ins, and so forth. There were 2 things that were unique. They reached out to Dr. Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King came to Houston one time, and it was pretty much after the student movement had already won the victories. And the students asked Martin to come to Houston. Martin said, I don't think so, but I'll pray about it. I'll pray for you. The students thought that was mighty strange, but they kept on again. Now, when they started with the sit-ins and taking these actions, they would ultimately get arrested. There was a unique relationship, we'll talk about it a little bit more later, between what we would loosely term the black elite. The wealthy black community leadership made sure that the bail money to get them out, they put up gladly. Yeah, they deserve it. The McCarys, the John B. Comans, the black leadership class of that time.
And Mr. Hoganbrook.
Yes, yes. And they even retained an attorney for them, George Washington. And immediately pressure came down from the system to expel these students from school. And the president of the university at that time, he said, no, we'll never do that. We understand what they're doing. We expect them to do their work, but we're not going to expel or suspend or take any disciplinary action against students who are standing up for their rights. I don't know if we can depend on that kind of support today.
No.
So the students won each one of those battles. And that was the essence of desegregation in Houston. 2 unique things. It's very difficult when we have 2 students that are PhD students from the University of Houston who are documenting the civil rights movement, black and brown in Houston. Ms. Rodriguez right there in front, and Ms. Enriquez, I believe, in back. The city of Houston has always operated a little bit differently than other cities dealing with desegregation. The city has always been focused, its leadership, with image and money. So there was a news blackout. They said we're going to desegregate all the restaurants at one time. There won't be a TV news report. There won't be a front page article until a week or so of the agreed upon time after the desegregation had taken place. That's a little bit about the TSU student-led movement. HISD desegregation, who wants to share?
Well, I think I may be the only one on the panel who was a product of HISD desegregation, but I don't believe I'm the only one in the audience. So those of you who were born between the years of 1955 and 1968, can I see your hands? 1955 to 1968. These are the products of HISD desegregation. But what I like to speak to are the effects of HISD desegregation. At Carnegie, Woodson, and Worthing, whether you were at Grimes, Yates, or Wheaton, it didn't matter. I had the privilege of meeting the man who actually ushered in the desegregation efforts in HISD. Billy Reagan was coming from a baseball game, having the privilege of sitting in the kibosh suite at a baseball game. I had never been in a stadium because I'm the one who asked y'all not to vote for him, so it took me 20 years to get in one. Nevertheless, he explained to me what I misunderstood about what most of us know to be called a singleton ratio. And some of you former instructors, or Mr. Provost for sure, who had engagement in HISD from a business standpoint as well as from a child being in it, the singleton ratio, as I misunderstood it, had something to do with having X number of teachers in X number of schools that were Anglo or African American. But what he explained to me was that the singleton ratio came out of a lawsuit, and the judge got a little terse and just simply told the school teacher who was on the front row, I'm going to name this ruling after you. Singleton, which meant, and the effect of it was, they took the worst and the greenest, the newest Anglo teachers and put them in the black schools, and took the most profound and successful African American teachers and put them in the white schools. That was the singleton ratio that we suffered under. Worse, those of you who raised your hands, some of you had the privilege of going to Millville and Lamar. And just like what you're seeing happening at level 5 and level 6 schools in HISD and Manville, the good athletes are going out to Manville and other places where they can get a good look. Well, that's what happened to many of our inner city high schools. The parents felt like they should go to Millville, they should go to Lamar, and quite frankly, some of them did get better scholarships. So in the end, desegregation never benefited us, but what we had going for us at that time in HISD was that those teachers who were left